a very warm welcome from day 2 of the Warsaw Security Forum, an event which brings together people around the defense and security sector here in Central and Eastern Europe region and even beyond. This has been a very busy morning and a very busy day and a half. We've had a flurry of guests here on our stage in our mobile World News studio, including Anna Loerman, the Minister of State for Europe and Climate in Germany, as well as Heather Atkins from Google, but not only.
Not only, you also have some Russian oppositionists such as Mikhail Khodorkovsky or Garry Kasparov, also slated to speak with us for some exclusive interviews here on TVP World, so please do stay tuned. Also, Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya was also here in attendance at the forum. Earlier today, the forum was opened by Warsaw's Mayor Rafał Trzaskowski, and of course there are many other top-level officials and former officials here at the conference. Yesterday, just to go into some highlights, yesterday we were able to talk to Ambassador Carpenter. He's an advisor to President Joe Biden, and he also has a place on the National Security Council. We had some very tough questions for him, and so yes, I do want to go ahead and say that if you want to look at this fantastic interview, it will be coming up on Ukraine this week, coming up on Saturday. But now let's go ahead and get to some of the discussions from today, shall we?
Let's take a look at the discussions we had here on our TVP World stage, and we will begin with hearing from Anna Loerman, that I mentioned before, the Minister of State for Europe and Climate from Germany.
Such phone call is currently not planned. It could be that along the lines of also Ukraine's effort for their peace formula, such an engagement might be needed. That's also something that the Chancellor said in his summer interview a couple of weeks back. But it's very clear that the direction of this path to peace is determined by Ukraine, and we're in close consultations here. It's very clear that the Minsk formula failed, and that Moscow is not to be trusted. And therefore, I think it is very clear that Ukraine needs to be supported by us Europeans, to be in a very, very good negotiation position. And it's also very clear that once negotiations take place, that we need very credible and clear security guarantees, because as we've seen in Minsk, any kind of sort of just a signature by Vladimir Putin is not really worth much.
So this comment from Anna Loerman was in response to one of the major topics, especially here today, regarding a possible phone call between German Chancellor Olaf Scholz to Russian President Vladimir Putin. According to the reports that we've learned from in the Zeit, Mr. Scholz could be possibly looking into having a phone call for the first time in 2 years when it comes to talking to Vladimir Putin, and she responded to that very question.
Yeah, it seems like a little bit of deja vu. Remember when President Emmanuel Macron was engaging Vladimir Putin towards the beginning of the war, of course, looking for an off-ramp for Vladimir Putin to save face. This time it's a little bit different, though. I think we have the upcoming U.S. elections. You also have a major push by certain players, if you will, to give peace talks or try and talk and negotiate with Vladimir Putin a chance. I spoke with General Boiseuch earlier today, the commander of the Eurocorps. He had a very different opinion, and of course you'll be able to see that later on TVP World. Also today, though, we spoke to former ambassador to Poland, former U.S. ambassador to Poland, Daniel Fried, and he also gave his opinion on the possibilities of such discussions between Olaf Scholz and Vladimir Putin. Take a listen.
The Chancellor should consider very carefully before he does any such thing. The question is not what the Germans' intentions are. The question is rather how Russia will receive those intentions. What will Putin think? And it is possible, even likely, that Putin will see the Chancellor's outreach to him as a sign of weakness and an opportunity to either sow division or create the false impression of a dialogue about Ukraine without Ukraine.
And obviously nothing about Ukraine without Ukraine. That's something that's come out of our own historical experience here
Yes,
in
indeed.
Poland. Of course,
Definitely a bit of a warning from Mr. Fried as well. A warning of caution. And now I think it's time to go to our eyes and ears here on the
Roaming.
ground. Marek Steele, who is with his next guest, and he's going to talk live to Zbigniew Pisarski, one of the organizers of the Warsaw Security Forum and a member of the Kazimierz Pulaski Foundation.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the introduction. Well, yes, exactly. Here to speak about the most important topics of this Warsaw Security Forum is Mr. Zbigniew Pisarski, Kazimierz Pulaski Foundation President and the founder of the Warsaw Security Forum. Hello and welcome.
Good afternoon.
So we're seeing presidents, prime ministers, ministers speaking here about security. What are the key takeaways here at this event?
Well, I could speak for an hour at least, but briefly speaking, I would say that one of the observations that I have after this first day already behind us is that Poland is back on the map of international dialogue about security. It looks that our voice is right now quite seriously threatened, not only because we were right about Russia as a threat, we were not Russophobes, we were simply Russo-realists, and it's somehow right now respected. And I see also that the politicians from Europe, and including Western Europe, are coming to Poland quite regularly, and we see this delegation here with more than 30 ministers of foreign affairs and defense here in Warsaw this day. And I see, for instance, that Weimar cooperation is getting back to life. We have today the trilateral meeting between ministers for Europe from Poland, Germany and France, and discussing new initiatives, for instance, like International Weimar Fund to be established between three countries. I see that we are talking more and more about European autonomy, and it's not in a contrast with the role of NATO and the United States. It's more that Europe has to take care about its own security, because the real threats are right now at the border of Europe. And Polish leadership in it, with defense spending at the level of more than 4% of GDP on defense and security, is a role model for a number of countries. And we hear it, and the fact that we are building right now the third army in NATO and the first army on the continental Europe is something what is widely admired by guests that are coming here. I must say that it's very encouraging also to see that we as a Pulaski Foundation, we want to be bipartisan. And because we believe that international security, the Polish defense and international relations is also there is one voice, in fact, among the leading political parties in Poland. And it's very encouraging to see that we have leaders of the government, but also of the opposition, coming here to the Warsaw Security Forum, speaking in different formats, and agreeing about the most fundamental things for the Polish security.
The Security Forum is taking place at a critical time. We have changes on the top positions that pertains NATO, for instance, Secretary General, a new Secretary General, and soon there will be also a new United States President. This is being discussed here today very thoroughly. How does this influence the forum here and discussions?
Well, diplomatically, I would say nothing is changing and everything is fine, and it's the decision of the U.S. Citizens to choose their own president. But not officially or freely speaking, as a think tanker, not being limited by the diplomatic courtesy, I would say that many European capitals took the responsibility for their own security. It's not that we are not counting on U.S. because we are afraid that President Trump could be a leader of the United States and might be reluctant to work closely with EU or in strengthening NATO. But it's also the fact that we don't want to be a hostage of American policy. And I think not many countries, as well as Poles, are understanding it, because when we've seen that in the US Congress, in the House of Representatives, for 6 months, there's a bill of support for Ukraine, was not adopted, although there was a majority for it, because the Speaker of the House didn't want to put it for voting. We know what liberum veto was meaning for the Polish history, that it resulted in 123 years of lost freedom. So not only Poles, but many European leaders are telling here right now that we have to count on ourselves. We have to, of course, do it in frame and in coordination with NATO and EU, but we have to be ready to face and take responsibility for our own security, because otherwise someone else might take responsibility for our security, and we might not like it.
A very, very important point. This was Mr. Zbigniew Pisarski, the Casimir Pulaski Foundation president and founder of the Warsaw Security Forum. Thank you very much for joining.
Thank you very much.
And I give the floor back to you, Don and Claudia, upstairs. Thank you.
And once again, that was our very own Marek Steele with his guest Zbigniew Pisarski from the Casimir Pulaski Foundation.
Well, as I mentioned before, the Warsaw Security Forum is not just a place that talks strictly about security and military matters. Again, like I mentioned, we had Svetlana Tsikhanouskaya, the leader of the Belarusian opposition abroad. We have a few Russian oppositionists in that, Mikhail Khodorkovsky and Gary Kasparov. But yesterday there was also the president of Georgia, Salome Zhorbashvili. Now, Georgia, as we all know, is going through a tumultuous change at this moment. They passed a law earlier this year concerning foreign influence bill. And some have likened this to a Russian law which would stifle dissent and free speech in Georgia. So the president of Georgia was here to express her solidarity, or to have her partners in Europe, which she desperately seeks the support of. And so let's take a listen to one of our exclusive interviews from yesterday with the president of Georgia.
I'm confident that Georgia will take the same train it has taken each time the question has come to it, because that's the only train that preserves Georgia's independence that we have been fighting for centuries, even more than Poland in earlier times.
Yes,
so
that we have in common.
We have that in common.
We do have this experience.
Independence, freedom are things that Georgians are not ready to let go, and they understand very well that the only preservation of independence, freedom and peace today, in today's world that is one of challenges and tensions, is with our European partners, with our American partners.
So we have elections coming up in Georgia towards the end of October, the end of the month, and this is going to be, again, very big elections to see which direction Georgia heads. Will it head towards Russia, or will it turn back towards Europe? Very
It'll
important.
be, yes, indeed. It'll be the people who will decide which direction they want to take the country in. And I suppose that the eyes of our region and the eyes of the world are going to go to Georgia for that election as well, even though there is another big election coming up. But what very powerful words. So independence, we have that in common. Independence, freedom are things that Georgians are not ready to let go. And I think this is a very important commentary from Madame President to bear in mind when it comes to that very election.
That's right. And to go full circle, we also spoke with General Ben Hodges, a frequent favorite guest of ours, appearing on TVP World. He's the former commander of the United States Army in Europe, a very strong voice not only for Poland, but for Ukraine as well. And so when we asked the question about peace talks and the push for Ukraine to sit at the table with Russia, well, let's just take a listen to Ben Hodges and hear his take.
I mean, when he hears these very, I think, ill-conceived pressures that Ukraine needs to negotiate now, okay, I think that gives hope to Putin that we're getting tired. And the fact that the U.S. government, the British government, the German government do not commit to actually helping Ukraine win the war, that also gives hope to the Kremlin.
So that was Ben Hodges, a short soundbite from Ben Hodges on a very important subject of Ukraine. However, we will be coming, this is all from us for now. However, stay tuned because we will be back live at 3 p.m. CET to tell you more about the events that are going to unfold here at the Warsaw Security Forum today.